There it goes. Wow, I had the wrong camera on. See, I was like the whole time, I'm like, that's not the right camera. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here. I just made more work for Oz. And by the way, I have a special co-host today, filling on in because my partner is on suspension for being such an awesome journalist, and her brother being such an awesome engineer, doing some amazing work. And Jonny did some great work as a journalist this week too, as well, man. If you haven't gone to the Rokfin or the YouTube, there's actually a little piece with a college professor by the name of Danny Shaw, who goes out to Nicaragua. He's been going out to Nicaragua for the last 16 years, and he's out there as part of the delegation. And they went to a Sandinistas college that was almost burnt down during the 2018 West-induced coup. So they're over there doing that work. So today I have with me a great person, a good friend. We've been bonding as, not only co-workers, part of the MCSE network, but as friends. Stank Analysis is here, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate that. But I'm envious of Fee and Jonny for being down there in Nicaragua. It looked like you guys had a lot of fun when you went there the first time too. I know you were saying that you feel disappointed that you couldn't go this time because of the freaking uncontrollable things, right? That just happened.
Yeah. No, it sucks. It does. But I try to do the right thing, stay isolated. I don't want to talk about it too much because, as we know on YouTube, you can get really whacked across the YouTube, taken down just for even talking about it. It's crazy. But we are going to talk about some other things that can get us taken down today, Franco. And I thank you for joining on. I know you're from Peru originally. You're from the global South. So you've been following a lot of stuff that goes down there. And I know you're kind of like so probably interested in, maybe you got to get down when next time we go to Nicaragua or something, or come down to Central America. It's, the friends we've made down there and the work that's being done. It's so important too, because it ties into everything that's going on today with all the conversations and, what we're going to talk about again today, whether it be left or right, whether it be Republican or Democrat. Franco, your thoughts on the duopoly itself?
I feel like more people are waking up to it as the pressures of the ruling class getting desperate to create narratives that just look more and more ridiculous. Like, for example, Jan 6, which I think we're going to dive into today. Their narratives are just becoming more and more ridiculous. Of course, in 2016, many people woke up. 2020, even more people woke up, including ourselves. But if people look at what we were saying in our shows in 2019, well, I didn't have a show in 2019, but you guys did. But early 2020 for me, and if you were to compare it now, the content is just, you see the evolution there. We don't think that electoral politics is a solution. I don't think that we even humor any congressperson that's running. But if they ever do, I was thinking about it. I was like, why don't I just interview them and then just ask them all the questions that even the independent media shows aren't asking? Like, what if I just asked them, have you thought about running as a Trojan horse, where you just like pretend like you are going to be an establishment candidate, but you go in there and then you turn DC upside down, and then you just expose everybody. You tell everybody how all the legislation that's being introduced, you're not going to approve of it. You're not going to sign on to it because it's all written by lobbyists. And that when you try to write your own legislation and introduce that, nobody wants it. So the best that you can do as a politician, if you ever were to run for it, is to just expose everybody as long as you can and be prepared to be a one-term candidate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have people like Cynthia McKinney, who was actually so popular in her district, right? So loved by her constituents. They even found a way to remove her. So I don't think they'll, ever allow anybody to get in the door that way. I mean, I know a lot of people too, as well. It's so crazy. I have a lot of friends that we kind of debate with, and for some reason, I get this whole kind of leftist socialist tag on me, like, oh, Pasta's a socialist and whatnot stuff. And I'm not. I'm a mixed economy guy. I don't believe in one particular ism. Communism, socialism, capitalism. I mean, I think there are good things about every one of those practices, and there's bad things about every one of those practices. and you have to understand what the other side is really fearful of, right? You know what I'm saying? You can't just say, as a leftist, I can't just say all Republicans are racist idiots that don't know what's going on. We shouldn't pay attention to them because half of the country are pretty much on one side or the other, right? We got to understand what their issues are. And their issues are authoritarianism, control, a lack of choices. To them, freedom is choices. If you're not subjected to this and that. But on the other hand, the way they look, a lot of your Republicans, and this is from empire education, this is from conditioning, the way a lot of conservatives look at socialism, they look at socialism and communism as the same thing. They look at it as complete control, total rule by an elite, you know what I'm saying, and that it should be abolished. In other words, they're more fearful of socialism than they are of elitism. And I've said this before, Franco, it doesn't make a difference what ism you practice, whether it be communism, socialism, capitalism, there's going to be an elitism, a group of ruling class people, what we have called the predator class, right? I believe Jason came to term, gave that term meaning, whatnot. We've been calling the predator class. That predator class will try to rule over the people, try to hog all the resources, try to control everything, no matter what system you're in. Go ahead, buddy.
Exactly. Yeah. And you say people call you a socialist or a communist, but I've seen people call you a right winger.
Yeah.
It's sad to see some of these people that are consider themselves to not be neoliberals, who come from the Bernie Sanders faction, that resort to arguments like, oh, you're a right winger. You're a right winger because why? Because we are seeing past the two-party illusion. And we're seeing things that are happening, like some things that we can't talk about on YouTube, the Roni Rona, like we're seeing that as a human rights issue, right? It's not a left versus right issue. But I just have concluded that people that come to those arguments of you being a right winger just don't have anything to argue against you. Yeah. And so they're just resorting to ad hominem attacks. So we just have to keep doing what we're doing and informing people, telling people this is what the objective information says about this issue, et cetera. None of this stuff should be divisive. Everybody should be committed to what the truth is. And I was saying this on James JB Font's show the other day, is that I don't think that there's any forces that are pushing us further left. It's more so people like us are just becoming more aware about what's going on. Like we're moving down further along in this path and this journey that we're in. And some people who aren't at where we're at have just been stuck in the path. Some people are stuck in 2016 or 2017. So now what we have to figure out is how do we get these people to move forward, to catch up with the times. I mean, there's people that are still believing in things like Russiagate, or still believing in the mainstream media narrative regarding Syria and all these other issues regarding foreign policy.
Yeah. I saw statistics, Frank, the people, what they believe the actual numbers are when it comes to the boop boop, right? Or the not boop boop, or just the what are we calling it? The Kobe Cove has done it again.
I called it the Roni Rona, but I think people know what Rona, right? Like talking about.
We all heard Justice Sotomayor, right? With her statistics, it's like, holy cow. And she's a Supreme Court justice, and she's like just misrepresenting the actual numbers. And even Bill Maher, and I don't want to give Bill Maher props because I don't trust Bill Maher as well, but he's even coming around saying some stuff when he was going out his audience, going, the Democrats, and they're pretty much the Democratic media, the establishment media that's out there, has just far misrepresented the numbers, that they really believe it's so blown over the top, it's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, like you said, people still believing in Russiagate. They still think that Trump is talking with the Russians and whatever. They still believe that Russia is like this Cold War mentality of Russia. And it is team sports too, because when it comes to foreign policy, we've said this before, even they got in, when it came to Joe Biden, the people that he is always going to align himself with and people he chose for his foreign policy team are the most neocon towards Russia mentality people ever, the Victoria Nulands, the Anthony Blinkens. Like, they're really making a whole huff and puff about these meetings about Ukraine and actually trying to chastise people chastise Russia for moving troops around in their own border. And there are Democrats who are really playing into this shit like, oh, they want to invade Ukraine. Oh, they want to go into this, not even realizing that. Guys, did you know about the last color revolution that was sponsored by the West? That Victoria Nuland said in a phone call she got the attaboy thumbs up for Joe Biden to go ahead with a regime change that has now thrusted Ukraine to be one of the most poorest countries, where it's displaced almost 1 million people, where there's been over 15,000 deaths in this manufactured civil war with people who were ethnically speaking Russian in the eastern part of Ukraine. This was propped up and pushed by the EU and the United States, and yet they still have the nerve to go on TV, say these things, the Anthony Blinkens, the Victoria Nulands, the John Sullivans, and the American people, they buy it up, they eat it up as if it's actual gospel when it's nothing but a bunch of malarkey. No pun intended.
Yeah. And then going back to those numbers, Walensky of the CDC came out recently saying that 75% of the people that died of the Rona had at least 4 comorbidities.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people don't take into account this context, and when this context isn't being used to explain to the public, then that's how you fearmonger people. When you don't give the context of how Russia is interacting with the rest of the world, and then looking at how the U.S. interacts with the rest of the world, then they fall into these narratives. They're not given the full picture.
Yeah.
They're deceived. Why would Trump be doing all these other things in all these other countries that go against Russia's interests, their geopolitical interests, right? Why would Trump want to implement a coup in Bolivia when that goes against what Russia wants? Why would Trump be bombing Syria if Assad is allied with Russia, right?
Yeah.
So these things are purposely left out. Like the context is purposely left out of these narratives to try to keep us divided, keep us confused. And it starts from birth when they try to indoctrinate us. And something that my friend Marcus Cage, who I have on the show a lot, and Polly, Young Morpheus and Shadow Band Refugee, Jack says, shout out to those guys, is that from school, they train us to be little authoritarians, train us to be like, no, this is how it has to be. So then when you interact with other people, you're behaving like a little authoritarian, like, oh no, you're not supposed to say that, when the whole entire time this is all based off of subjective opinions.
Yeah.
You don't want people to say something because it offends you subjectively.
Yeah. It's the empire education Johnny would always say. And by the way, shout out to Young Morpheus and Shadow Band Refugee. Left you. I got my mom to come sit down and watch a little bit of the show, but she left because Shadow Band was using the F word too many times. So you got to work on that, Shadow Band, Polly, because now that people are listening to you, you can't say too many F-bombs. When I say 2 per show, I got to apologize to my mom, and I get a phone call about my language. That's not professional. If you want us to watch, stop with the curse words. So
she doesn't watch Jimmy Dore.
What's that?
He doesn't watch Jimmy Dore.
Who?
Your mom?
She will when I sit her down and watch it. My mom still is conventional. She still just watches stuff that's on the TV. She makes sure she watches Tucker all the time, and every once in a while but here's the thing, she'll peek at Newsmax and OAN. Obviously she's more conservative, but now she's peeking at RT, 321. I got her on the direct TV, so she's peeking at that too as well. And obviously she'll watch her son's show, and if I say let's watch this show together, she'll watch it and stuff. In that particular situation, I was just chilling out, and I'm like, Ma, come on in here, my friends are having a show, and you guys were having a great conversation. But yeah, too many F-bombs, but he's got to change that. No big deal, Paul.
But you do see the little authoritarians reflecting in people on Twitter. Like we see that reflected so well over there. And then it's frustrating for us. We get into arguments with these people, which I don't think we should focus too much on that because it's not good for our mental health.
But part of the schooling too, with just getting back really quick, what I was trying to say with the empire education is the way they convince too, like, now everything's changing right now. Now it's like, oh, well, holy shit, we have to pay for our sins. We've been doing this for so long, you know what I'm saying? But the way they would raise, they would teach almost kind of subconsciously white men to be just obedient soldiers. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
To dupe them into being obedient soldiers is what Carlin talked about for so long. Oh God, you're the master race and this and that, and you got to fight against communism and blah blah blah. Blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, everybody's been duped, everybody's been programmed, everybody's been fooled. The joke's on all of us. The ruling class, the predator class, has had their ways, and it's going to be an uphill battle to really change some minds and get some people plugged in there. Because Franco, what they've done to us is they've censored us so much. They kept us out of the eye, out of the limelight and stuff like that. And they have all the power behind them. They own all the airwaves to push their messaging. And if you look at TV nowadays, if you look at cable news, it's just pitting one side against the other. That's it. They don't have these serious conversations to get to the bottom of things, to understand things. All they're saying is that is your enemy. It's like 1984. That is your enemy. He's your problem. That is your enemy. He's your problem. Duke it out with each other. And a lot of people are falling for it, especially on the conservative side. They still think that socialism is the problem when it really is the ruling class.
Yeah, and it gets reflected really well when I thought it got reflected really well in the debate that I had recently, when my opponent was just repeating talking points and not backing it up with any evidence. And that's what they want us to, that's how they want us to think. They're like, oh, this authoritative figure, Fauci said this, or the CDC said this, so that's what's true. Well, you got to bolster your claim with evidence. And the same is true for people that, are on our side, who watch our channels. Like, don't just believe everything that I say, or don't just believe everything that the Convo Couch says. Look at the evidence for yourself, so that way you know what you're talking about and you can bolster your claims with actual evidence. Yeah. What does a peer-reviewed scientific article say? And then don't just stop there. You have to look at the methodology and question even that.
Yeah.
The narratives that are set in the science also. Who who controls the definitions and everything? Why are the definitions that way? Is that affecting the way in which you're viewing the results?
Yeah. I think, though, the reason why they do that, Franco, is because they get to the answer they want, right? It's like, it's not really about getting to the truth. It's just about proving that your side and your team is right and the other side is wrong, and they got to be demonized. So when they get to that answer that they want, they stop there. They don't go deeper. You know what I'm saying? And look, we as a group, right? Like, we had our little conversation. I had the debate with Jack Sith about when it came to crypto. I'm ready to have another one with Steve and stuff like that. Like, we still come across areas where we don't understand the answers to. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people, I think they get a little bit confused about my position on China, because for so long I was always like, well, China's not that bad. Look what they're doing. They're moving people out of poverty. And then again, when I talk about China versus America, you know what I'm saying? As far as, America has 800 bases outside of its own territory, where China has like 3, right? So the imperialism's a little bit different, and they come in with a little financial incentive. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they're the Boy Scouts, because we all know, we see the pictures of Xi Jinping holding arm in arm with Klaus Schwab, and there's a lot of questions there too as well, because it's never black and white. And I think that's the thing right now. It's gray 9 times out of 10, and people have to find a way. And that sometimes can be a problem, right? Franco, because they don't get to the answer then. Then everything's kind of still left in the air, like, well, what is it then? Well, we don't know. It remains to be seen. But that's the way you got to sometimes look at things. You have to look at them very objectively, and then you have to eventually come to a conclusion. Sometimes that conclusion is, you don't have the final conclusion yet. You don't have the final answer. It remains to be seen.
Yeah, very well said. Like, we shouldn't be a sycophant for any person, any country. There's gray areas like how you were just describing. These are global powers. Like, there's pressures that are happening that pushes countries that like China to behave a certain way that could benefit the people that are in power in that country. Yeah, maybe some people in that country do genuinely care about their people. Maybe some things that China does are a lot better than how the US does it, but it doesn't mean that we should stop questioning there, because then that just makes you a sycophant. So yeah, never stop questioning things. That example there with Xi Jinping shaking hands with Klaus Schwab and praising him, that's a great example of that. We shouldn't just stop there.
No.
Right?
It's cause for concern. I mean, I still have a hard time believing that China's pulling the strings. If they've entered into some type of backdoor partnership years ago to get into some global world order, whatever the hell you want to call it today, one rule, whatever, and stuff like that, And the funny thing is like, you know, people go, well, that's communism. And then you have this whole group of people right now, like you have these conservatives that I know, they have this whole group of people that they have to come up with some answers, because the only thing they can seem to do is blame China for everything. China this, China that, China this, China that, China this. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, take it easy. We have our own house to clean over here. We have our own issues. Just pawning it off on China. I don't know what they're trying to do, the ruling class. I do know there's a ruling class out there, for sure. I don't know if they completely know. And that was like when I was in Nicaragua, there were still like the guys that I was talking to, my friend Ahmed Cabello from Press TV. What's up, Ahmed? My good friend Wyatt Reed, and from Sputnik, and my good friend Ben Rubenstein from Mint Press. You know, we were in a room, we were talking, and this is around the election time when we just witnessed the elections in Nicaragua. I said to them, I believe that we have some sort of a shadow government that we don't know exactly who they are yet. You know, Robert Kennedy Jr. somewhat shares that same sentiment. They were like, no, we know who they are. These are the corporations, whatnot. And I'm like, not so quick there. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's going out there. I don't know if we have all the answers right now. We're trying to connect all the dots, and we'll do the best we can to connect all the dots. But let me tell you something. It's going to be some bumpy roads out there, Franco, because, you know, sometimes I'm ready to just throw my arms up in the air and go, yo, man, I don't want to do this no more, because we're not getting across to people. The left is just demonizing everything the right does. They're so aloof to power, right? This, we'll just move Joe Biden left kind of thing. They don't respect power. They don't understand power like the right does. And then the right just wants to blame everything on critical race theory or, you know, communism and whatever. And it sometimes I feel like we're losing ground. We're not gaining ground. So just my particular word of advice out there to everybody out there doing that, find a way to find a happy spot and keep moving forward, because there's a long, bumpy road ahead of us. And it remains to be seen what's going to happen, how we're going to move people or affect them.
Yeah, I was going to say something that I learned in one of the first interviews that I ever did on Frank Analysis, which was with Steve Poikonen, which this advice has stuck with me ever since then, when he said people should diversify their sources, right? You can watch a Carl Zah, you can watch a Danny Haifong and a Caleb Maupin, and also watch a Jason Burmis, a Derek Bros, a Whitney Webb. And then based off all that information that you've gathered, integrate all that in the way that you see things.
Yeah.
Whoever has the most evidence, you can accept it as true for the time being until more evidence is presented to you. Right? You don't just stop there. Nothing is ever going to be conclusive, but definitely diversifying your sources. You know, the Convo Couch is over here, the Frank Analysis over here, the MCSC networks, the Revolutionary Blackout Medias, integrate all those viewpoints together, and then you get a better picture of what's going on in the world. Of course, there's going to be some disagreements, but take with you what works best based on all the evidence that has been presented to you.
By the way, Shadowban Refugee and Jack Sith, great words of advice there, by the way, Franco, too, as well, because, and that's something that I think we've done well, too, as well. We each got our own lane and things we like to talk about and things we like to do, you know what I'm saying? And when you do that, you can watch one whole network when they have a great mixture of items to talk about, you know. But yeah, and that's the funny thing, because we'll get into this today. Let me just say hi to a couple people who it's on the YouTubes, guys. Go ahead and share. Jack Sith, Shadowban, who I just said hi. Anthony Orsini, gave 5 pasta from Pasta Jardula. Lucky Burrito, Joe OWOS. Lucky Burrito, I already said your name. Doomsday. Guys, do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, do the whole 9 yards today. Pasta Jardula on the Convo Couch, hanging out with Frank Analysis, aka Stank Analysis. And I love
Friendly neighborhood stank over here.
Neighborhood stank. He was like, "Fuck you, spaghetti. F you, spaghetti." So he me spaghetti. You didn't get it by yourself.
Spaghetti. Like, what was the point of that, right? If your name's already pasta, why would you care if they call you spaghetti?
Yeah, whatever, dude. I mean, you know. I don't want to talk. Duncan, I almost said some shit. I don't want to say some shit. Just leave it be and stuff like that. You know,
let's just take those funny nicknames and just like own it and laugh about it.
Stank Analysis. You've been that since I've seen you now, since he said it. Steve Cutler live. Yona, what's up? How you doing? Hanging out? Where the hell is Trey? Trey, I hope you're okay. I saw your tweet. Love you, brother. Duncan McCowan is also there. Accidental Activist. You know I love you, Shanda. You're amazing.
Shout out to Shanda.
Yeah, and Amber too as well. You know, Amber sucks too sometimes because she'll set me straight on certain things that I thought about, whatnot too as well. Del Bigtree. What do you think about Del Bigtree?
What is that?
All right, see, Del Bigtree runs this show called The High Wire. He used to work for Dr. Phil. He has really raged hard against the whole vaccine and everything else. The whole boop boop situation, and he's got a show. It's a very quality show, whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's been questions about dude. You know what I'm saying? So I know Amber's got an opinion about him. So I want to get an opinion from Amber about Del Bigtree.
All I've seen is a 9-minute episode or segment in which they discussed Facebook in court making the argument, and when it comes to fact checkers, they have protected opinion. So then their fact checkers are not actually like facts, they're op-eds, they're opinions. So that was funny. That's what I saw. It was a good breakdown that I saw, very high quality. I don't know what their other stances are on a bunch of other issues, but it's just that one 9-minute segment, and I thought was informative.
If you go back and watch their shows, there's a lot of great information there too as well. And, you know, even people even say that too about Malone, you know, Dr. Malone, they questioned him too as well, because they said he was once about contact tracing, and that's a big red flag. So a lot of people are always got the left eye on Malone. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you were for vaccines, you took them. You're not for mandates, but you were also for contact tracing. I don't know. And Malone is amazing. You've got some great information. You got him on the show. See, those are the things, like, we've had some great shows when you have Malone on, when I have McCullough on. These are great shows too, from little guys to get out there like us and to swing the bat. You know, it's something special. So, you know, we'll talk about those other people. Let's get into the show because we have a couple sections real quick. The first section, I titled it, Hypocrites in Congress play victim over January 6th, yet fund bloody insurrections through NGOs. And primarily, I want to talk about the NED. And I got a great little, thumbnail for this one, Franco, because I got to also witness when I was in Long Beach, California, during the Democratic Convention about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It was 2.5 years ago. God, I'm losing track of time with this whole Roni. But, you know, we got to get into a press conference in there, and we got to put, you know, Cory Booker on blast. We got to put him on spot, and we got to get him on record. And it's so great because we'll get to go back and use it again today. But what happened when January 6th was a little bit crazy, Franco, because all these people, you know, they had this whole thing together, all these congressional members, whatnot, these Democrats got to get together and play victim and act like it was so scary and it was so bad. Now, coming from a person who was at January 6th, I can tell you this much: it was nothing like they make it out to be, right? It was not this insurrection. If a bunch of Trumpers, a bunch of conservatives who are Second Amendment absolutists wanted to take over the Capitol, we would have saw at least one weapon there. And you know what? They still might have been in there today, hunkered down, holding the place down. That's, you know, these doomsday preppers of sorts. So we had a lot of sense of, like, a lot of foul play going on. It didn't seem right. But nevertheless, don't put it past the Democrats to take advantage of a good crisis. Who knows if it was a manufactured crisis? You know what I'm saying? Like that. We saw, I don't know if you saw Cruz out there, Ted Cruz, who's full of caca when it comes to a lot of stuff, questioning one of the FBI directors or a supervisor of the FBI, asking him, was anybody in place in there, whatnot? She's like, I can't answer that question. Was there anybody who did this from the FBI? Can't answer this question. They refused to answer any questions, whether the FBI was involved, whether the FBI did anything whatsoever. So there's a lot of questions there, Franco, and your opinions about what January 6th was about. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Definitely exaggerated. We've covered it on my show with several guests. We've seen how AOC said that she was hiding out, even though her office is not in the same building. It was all the way across the street. And what else was I going to say about? Oh, I was watching some videos yesterday of people that were in because there were protests that were happening a few days before that, that some of these people that were upset with the election results were at. And there were individuals that were yelling, yeah, tomorrow we're going to go into the Capitol. We're going to go straight in there. And then people caught on to that and were like, no, this guy's a Fed. And then they started chanting, Fed, 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 Fed.
Yeah.
So that footage exists. And then the same individual the next day in front of the Capitol on January 6th was telling people to march inside. And you're telling me that the richest country that this world has ever seen could not stop these people from marching in. The country with the biggest military couldn't get enough backup to prevent this from happening in the heart of the country, in DC, the nation's capital.
Yeah.
It's impossible to me. And then you look at the footage and they just let them go right in. From what you and other people who are on the ground, Steve, Fiorella, Jason, have been saying, it was a normal protest that was happening. It was not anything violent that you guys saw prior to people marching in.
Yeah.
So it's definitely used as an opportunity, like what we were discussing earlier in the show, to try to fearmonger and divide people, to have these faithful Democrats be afraid of other working class people, the people who are dedicated to the right, or even people who you guys also saw on the ground there, who just care about election integrity. We don't know how accurate the results are, considering we don't have transparency in our elections and how they're privately owned.
Yeah. And that's the main cause for concern why people were out there, Franco, is we were together when this happened. We were like, we went to the Assange events. We went to the Force to Vote events. At the Force to Vote event, there were more cops there than there were at the Capitol building.
It's insane.
A couple days later.
Yeah.
And you saw they came out with the heavy artillery. Johnny spots that stuff right away because, he's been to so many protests. Oh, you guys got, what do you call those things? These zip ties. You're ready to take people in. Oh, you're coming out with heavy gear here. You got like SWAT type gear and stuff like that. We saw this and it was out there like that for our protest. And then nothing happened at the Capitol. It was like nobody was coming, and let me tell you something. The people who march, and we were educating people. We were talking to people about elections. We saw aunts, uncles, grandpas. We saw newborn babies.
Dogs.
We saw men of color. We saw Latinos. We saw everything there. We saw a big group of Chinese people that were handing out literature. They were actually anti-governmental Chinese people, but their life wasn't threatened. This wasn't a bunch of bigots and a bunch of racists. Now, there might have been some there, but the majority of these people were people who just thought the election was fraudulent and they were there to protest against the election, plain and simple. And that's why, me being an election integrity activist, I was told, oh, this is great. We're going to go out to force the vote. We're going to go out to action for Assange. And then we're going to follow it up with the Stop and Steal rally. And we're going to be able to educate a lot of people. And there will be a lot of people out there. Like, I bet Fiorella that there would be over 100,000 people there. She didn't think it would happen. And she saw that. And we were like, holy shit. You know what I'm saying? And we had lived through the Bernie Sanders debacle when it came to the elections in 2016 and then the primaries again in 2020. We had said there has to be a time, especially in 2016, I couldn't understand it, when Bruce Spiva, the Democratic Party, the Democratic lawyers, said in the DNC lawsuit that technically we can go into the back room full of cigar smoke and pick whoever we want. We don't have to have a democratic process. They admitted to this. I thought that was going to be a place where the Democrats, I don't want to say Democrats, the progressives in the Democratic Party that were only there because they wanted to vote for a progressive was going to plant their flag and say enough is enough. But two things happened. Number one, Bernie Sanders cowered like the little weasel that he is. And I'm saying that live right now to anybody out right now. I'm calling Bernie Sanders a weasel. Okay. And this is from somebody, who really supported Bernie hard. When Bernie didn't get the nomination in 2016, Franco, I cried. It was hard. You know what I'm saying? And number two, the progressives are, I'm so sorry, they capitulate to power too easily. They don't understand power. They think they can manipulate power. They can move power. They think they can transform it. You know what I'm saying? but they can't. So doing that, having the opportunity to go to this situation and stuff to educate people on elections and seeing the people in these elections, I was all for it. The people that marched on that day, Franco, a lot of them, they were proud. They were showing, when you're talking about the people who marched from the ellipse to the Capitol, first of all, the people in the Capitol reached the Capitol before the people in the ellipse that were at the Donald Trump speech even got down there. That's just something that's not talked about at all. It's a 40-minute walk. They were already in there, so it wasn't even the same people. So when they're saying that Donald Trump incited violence, bullshit. I've been to plenty of rallies before. I've heard plenty of speeches like that. I've heard Bernie Sanders, we're going to march to the Capitol. We're gonna fight back. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of rhetoric that's used. So, Donald Trump says, we're going to do it peacefully because we're the party of law and order. Right. Those people were proud, Franco, that they marched down to the Capitol without burning anything, without throwing trash cans through windows or any of that stuff. They were actually proud of that, no?
Right. And you were there the night before, if I recall, with like Steve and Jason Bermas, right? There were protests happening that night before, and the night even before that, leading up to that. That video that I mentioned that I saw, this individual yelling, we're going to march inside the Capitol. You didn't see any of that, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, and if it was
before, no.
And if it was true that there were people that were chanting this stuff, then either way, this argument falls apart on these people that are calling these people insurrectionists and et cetera, these violent people that went in, because then that means that DC knew about it, that Congress knew about it, the police, there's feds all over the place, undercovers all over the place inside of DC. They're going to hear things and it should be reported to their higher ups.
Yeah.
So even if that was true, then they would have done everything that they could to prevent it from happening. But I mean, we've seen footage of it. You guys took footage of it. It looks like they just let people go right in. So it seems like
on one side they
allowed it to happen,
or
the
other side they had their instigators. So it was like they were trying to start the perfect fire. I think the powers that be, Franco, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, I think the powers that be wanted this situation to be a lot worse than it actually turned out. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like instead of saying 5 dead, they wanted to say 50 dead. That didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? They're
probably counting on it too. If they had pre-knowledge to this occurring, and then they were going to focus on that. And then it would have been harder for us to try to debunk this and explain the nuances of it to people. But because it was the calamities were very low, Ashley Babbitt was one individual who passed away because of the police. What else? What was the number of deaths that occurred?
5, I think they said. I think they said it was 5 deaths total that occurred.
Right, and then they try to.
Officer Sitnik is going in that list of the 5, and he died a day later. Obviously, we're still trying to handle that, where all these networks that used our footage are, and as we're approaching them, what they're saying, well, it was used in a court case. We can use this footage and stuff like that. But that they're saying that the bear mace eventually hit Sitnik, and later the next day he died of a stroke. So they're still adding that into the 5 people tally, where we don't know for sure. They're just using that to fabricate the numbers.
Yeah. So they're including things that aren't exactly because of it, just like how they do with whenever they want to create other narratives, like something that we know what's going on right now, right, with the Rona. But then they try to fearmonger also when cops who were at the event commit suicide months later.
Yeah.
But is it because of January 6th, or is it because they had other stuff going on in their life? Right. Yeah. And then like I had family members that told me, it's like, no, it was a really hard day. It was traumatizing. There were cops that killed themselves because of what they saw that day. It's like, because of what they saw that day, or is it because they had other stuff going on in their life?
Yeah. And once again, I'm not one of those all cops are bastard people, right? I'm not one of them at all. However, I think law enforcement in the state has just gotten out of hand. I know right now, like Fox is just showing all these people that are allowed to steal without getting charged or arrested. But, I watched a video the other day. It's showing what they're doing with the drug war still in South Carolina, just busting in these people's houses looking for marijuana. and what they do to ruin people's lives that way. And they have, military grade weapons. So, I mean, I'm not one of those people whatsoever, but this is not traumatizing to what we've seen out there. And we've been about to a bunch of rallies. As you know, Johnny and Fee have been to so many rallies. I've been to a decent amount. I've been to more rallies than the average person, and they've been to a ton of rallies. You know what I'm saying? This is not something traumatizing. What's traumatizing to me, Franco, is those homeless people that are still living outside the White House, those homeless people that are all around the streets, the family that can't pay their bills, that they can't pay their hospital bills. There's real trauma going on every day within our society. So for the elites and the congressional members to hide behind this, it's really just a chicken shit move. And I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it whatsoever. It's bullshit.
And not only that, Pasta, but in those halls, that's where they make decisions for bombing other countries.
Yeah.
Majority of which are Black and brown people.
Yeah.
That's not traumatizing. We're not going to talk about that. Yeah. And there is footage of what some of these individuals in January 6th, it was like 4 of them that entered where Congress makes their decisions, where the president speaks and everything. They enter in there and the police is like, hey, can you guys leave? This is like a sacred place, Like, it was so calm. Like, how is it such a violent, extremely traumatizing event, like how the mainstream media makes it out to be, when the cops weren't even worried when they went in, the very few fools that went into that room.
Yeah. I thought at the end of they got a ticket for a hot dog, and at the end they were going to go get a hot dog and a soda after their tour, and then they're staying inside the rooms. But Franco, while you're there, let's jump right into this whole situation, because this is something we're talking about. Like, they're going to sit there, they're going to hide behind this whole insurrection, which we know is not an insurrection. There was a great article written on a Substack by The Dissident, and I was going to talk about this the very next day after January 6th, and it was titled "January 6th Freakout Exposes Hypocrisy of the American Empire. The hypocrisy of Washington's freakout over January 6th." And this is something that we're going to talk about right now, because this is, the Convo Couch, we're all about foreign policy, right? We started off about foreign policy and elections. There wasn't a lot of election stuff to talk about when we first got involved. There was a little here and there, but we love to follow foreign policy because we believe in foreign policy. Our foreign policy is our domestic policy, right? And I'm not saying that because Tulsi said it. I'm saying that because it's true. And when it comes to the top of the ticket, when it comes to the president, the most power that they have inside the Oval Office is when it comes to foreign policy. But not only does the White House or the commander-in-chief have a lot of power when it comes to foreign policy, Congress, especially people like Nancy Pelosi, stand behind this shit all the time. And when I say stand behind this, they use the forms of NGOs like the NED, the OAS, to stand behind an imperialistic fascist regime change policy. So it says, on the anniversary of January 6th, Washington, D.C. politicians commemorated the right-wing riots, and they called them that, right-wing riots, that took place last year, where the Trump supporters stormed the Capitol because they falsely believed the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. This is an event that has nonstop media coverage in the mainstream media and focus from the Washington, D.C. politicians such as Nancy Pelosi, who introduced the cast of the musical play Hamilton to commemorate January 6th. Did you see that, Franco, where they used the cast of Hamilton to go in and start opening up the dialogue to the special they had on January 6th? Did you get a chance to see it?
I had no idea about it, but it doesn't surprise me that they used these liberal tools to do that.
Pawns. They're pawns. Yeah. They really are. And they really think they're virtually signaling as something really real, that they're fighting against racism. But when they don't pay attention to what we do in other countries, like you said, these are mostly Black and brown people who are getting bombed. And that's why I would like to ask the progressives out there, if you're joining in today just because you want to hate on us and get mad at us and give us thumbs down, please do so. We love you. Thank you for joining up. But why in fact are you so focused on a Trumper with a hat on that sits on his patio, on his porch, they're not patios. He sits on his porch drinking Meisterbrow, using bad pronouns, and you think that person who has no power, you think that is the racism we have to pay attention, that we need to change, rather than our foreign policy, which with our crew, what they're doing right now in Nicaragua. How can we not say that is a really form of racism that we have to pay attention to, Franco? and the other thing is a problem.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is a form of racism. Congress is racist to what they do to people here in the U.S. with their policies, how that disproportionately affects Black and brown people, these economic policies, but also their decisions on what they do in other countries to further enrich their donors so that they can exacerbate things even more.
Yeah.
Just to bring it a little bit more to what was stated there and from that article, they claim that these individuals on January 6th falsely believed that the election was stolen. Now, because of a lack of transparency, because we don't know whether our votes actually counted, and that is a fact, we don't know, the burden is on them to prove that it is false, that the election was not stolen from Donald Trump. We don't know for sure. It is true he could have lost, but that lack of transparency prevents us from seeing that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a call to get back to the basics of elections, get back to the basics like Nicaragua with the way their election was, which is beautiful. Nicaragua and Honduras have public counting, of course, and that is the main issue, is that we don't know. And you are right about the fact is, no, when people go, well, no, it's up to Trump to prove that it was stolen from him. I'm like, no, it's not. It's up to the electoral bodies, the people running these elections, to prove to the American people that it was fair and transparent. It should be that way. This is not about Donald Trump. It's more about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. It's about our election system and how fraudulent it could be because there are so many inaccuracies built to the framework. And I don't know if the dissident was being sarcastic there or being serious. You know what I'm saying? When he put that there, because it is a bullshit statement, because we do not know. You know what I'm saying? Now, as an election integrity activist, I can say, listen, I believe that it was definitely fraudulent because there were so many inaccuracies that need to be proven. There were so many of these mathematical impossibilities. And for somebody to say that, their opinion, right, they should be able to say those things because the system itself is all messed up. But digressing back to the article, putting that aside for a second, the fact that we're going to sit here and we're going to see all our politicians cry and scream over the insurrection, meanwhile, on a regular basis, Franco, every year, whether it be Donald Trump in office, whether it be Joe Biden or Obama in office, we fund these bloody coups, these regime change, by way of NGOs, which are nonprofit organizations like the NED, like the OAS, like, what's another one? What's a good one out there right now?
You named a good chunk of them.
Those are the good ones, right? USAID, right? All these phony factions that get funded by the State Department through the Pentagon. They're pretty much told they're CIA light as far as I'm concerned. The NED was formed when Reagan got in trouble for what happened with the Contra scandal, the Iran Contra scandal, when he was actually funding weapons, by using crack cocaine sold by Freeway Rick Ross to take that money that was cocaine run out of Colombia, take that money that was sold on the streets of LA and New York, which destroyed, these communities. It's just terrible. Buy guns from Iran, sell them to the Contras to fight the Sandinistas. It was just, there's so many elements of feeding into racism right there. I'm going to read this next paragraph. What many do not know is that these same Washington, D.C. politicians and mainstream media have supported far more dangerous right-wing insurrections in official enemy countries in Latin America, such as Nicaragua and Venezuela. Take, for example, Nicaragua, where the U.S. empire has long wanted to overthrow the government led by the Sandinista, Daniel Ortega. Scholar Benjamin Waddell, who is a critic of the Ortega government, reported that the United States government led to an attempted insurrection in Nicaragua. In a report, he explained that the United States government, National Endowment for Democracy, spent $4.1 million funding opposition groups in Nicaragua between 2014 and 2017. The report shows that in 2017, the NED 86,000, to anonymous groups that they claimed were to foster a generation of democratic youth leaders. This money laid the groundwork for an attempted insurrection in 2018, where in Nicaragua-based journalist John Perry reported public buildings and houses of government supporters were burned down and police were tortured and killed. An extremely disturbing video posted on the YouTube titled "Sandinistas Are Tortured Every Day" shows 8 minutes of people being tortured by these insurrectionists because they were sympathetic to the Sandinista government. Leonel Morales, a student protest leader who denounced the violent insurrection, was kidnapped by coup leaders who shot him in the face, stabbed him in the throat, and threw him in a ditch to die. Luckily, the guy survived. And I have a tweet right here. And this is when Max Blumenthal went and saw him, right? I visited Leonel Morales today. He is in the hospital in Managua going through a string of surgeries. An armed opposition affiliated gang kidnapped him at his girlfriend's house, tortured him, slashed him, and shot him, and left him for dead in a drained ditch. He miraculously survived. And this is something too, as well, Franco, that Jonny, and it's on our YouTube, it's on our Rokfin. Jonny went with this guy Daniel Shaw. Like I talked to this guy who's a professor in a New York university or New York college of sorts. He went and saw this school that in 2018, the opposition to the Sandinista government tried to burn down to the ground. Now, how can you be a Democratic congressional person, like an AOC, like an Ilhan Omar, like a Ayanna Pressley, all these people, like a Jamila, do I always say her name right?
Pramila, but yeah.
Pramila Jayapal, I always say her name right. Pramila Jayapal, another phony, Ro Khanna, all these people, and you're going to sit there and cry about the insurrection that happened that day. Meanwhile, there's funding that comes directly from congressional bodies that allow the State Department and all these other NGOs get funded to do the bidding of the CIA, of the FBI, of the American imperialist arm, where people get killed, tortured, and died religiously on a regular basis. How can you sit there and be so hypocritical, Franco?
Right. And I don't know if they strategically don't call themselves anti-imperialists. I don't know if those Congress people that you just mentioned, AOC, Pramila Jayapal, Ilhan Omar, I don't know if they've used the word imperialism. Maybe they have, but their actions are not anti-imperialist. They do claim to be anti-corporate. They do claim to be the progressive, quote unquote, which would traditionally, that would involve standing against these corporations, right? But what they are doing, either through silence or voting strategically, some of which vote to drone strike Israel or to give more money to the dome in Israel or to go ahead and fund for more coups in Latin America or other countries in the global South. By doing that, they're not being anti-corporatist. They're allowing these corporations to enrich themselves off of the suffering of these individuals, these Black and brown people in the global South.
Yeah.
So that needs to be called out more. It's not called out enough, unfortunately, in independent media. And what else was I going to say about this? These are the decisions, again, these are the decisions that they are involved with inside of the halls of Congress.
Yeah. And, they've been awful about it from the get-go, right? I think that one of the first just eye-opening, like, holy cow, was, when AOC told Max Blumenthal she's going to defer to the caucus leadership when it comes to this. We were all just stunned. We were all just stunned. We were like, no way. By the way, Oz, let's put up that speaking tree Twitter over there too, that little meme that somebody made. And this is so true, how people treat this. January 6th, you can see the mother helping the baby swim, not letting her drown. But then over here, you just have U.S. overthrows Mossadegh in Iran, 1953. Kids drowning over there. U.S. overthrowing Arbenez in Guatemala in 1954, which was a big one because the UFC, which is the United Fruit Company, they nationalized the banana Guatemala, and they were using that fruit and selling that fruit to build themselves roads, hospitals, all this stuff. And they were convinced we have to take these commies out. The U.S. overthrows Lumumba in the Congo in 1960. The U.S. overthrows Allende in Chile in 1973. We talk about the real September 11th, right? And not to take away from what happened on September 11th, but the other September 11th, the CIA disrupts the U.S. Communist Party. That's something within the United States and stuff they've done. They've infiltrated us. U.S. supports coups in Honduras in 2009. We were just over there right now, and they just finally got back into power, the Libre Party, but it was a coup that overthrew stuff. Removed Manuel Zelaya in the middle of the night. The U.S. invasion of Iraq. The U.S. occupation of Haiti from 1915 to 1934. And Haiti has been long subjected to removing their leaders all the time. They just kidnapped their president and get him out of there. The U.S. invasion of Iraq, the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, the U.S. occupation of the Dominican Republic in 1916 to 1924. You can see they're all drowning, and Congress does nothing. Congress says nothing. Our foreign policy is a joke, and it's still going forward in the same manner as it was with Donald Trump. It's the same manner as it was of Barack Obama. We have no friends in the halls of Congress, especially when it comes to our foreign policy, because it is god awful.
And it is our domestic policy, like you mentioned earlier, because these are investments, right? All those coups that were listed there in that meme are an investment to make these corporations more powerful, to have more influence on our politicians. Yeah. And so they can implement more policies to make them even more rich.
Yeah.
So this public-private partnership that's occurring here between the corporations and the state, further empowering each other, by definition, is fascism. So all these leftists that claim to be anti-fascist and all that, they're focusing too much on their neighbors, the working class people, where they don't look at the root as, okay, why are they this way? Why are these working class people that are in many cases they are ignorant? Those individuals are focusing too much on also blaming other people, blaming immigrants, etc.
You there, Franco?
They're that way because these corporations have a lot of influence on our.
Franco, you're buffering. Hopefully you'll come back soon.
And those people from being like that then focus on the root, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look,
sorry, I thought I lost connection.
You did half of what you said you lost, but you did say something that was really important, and I just want to point out by definition what fascism is, right? And I make this joke all the time, being that I am 61%, 61 and change, so let's say 62% Southern Italian, right? I understand the true definition of fascism by Benito Mussolini, and that is the merger between corporation and state. And you talked about this before. I think that's something important we have to point out moving forward, fam, because, you know, we talk about this all the time, Franco. When I tell my mom about what the United States does, the government, she goes, at one point, she'll be like, oh, you know, Craig, at what point are we going to continue to always complain the government for everything? It's not the government, it's corporations. Corporations convincing the government, corporations that control the government to go in with this foreign policy, to go in there for resource extraction. The bankers, the banks, right, to go in there to make sure that monetary system, our monetary system, is used in those countries and nothing else is used instead, you know? So I think we have to also frame this right when we're moving forward. We have to let everybody understand that the system of government we're living in right now, we might think that we have a capitalist society. We don't, because it's a crony capitalism. And when crony capitalism is exacerbated, it turns into fascism. Because when everything's for sale and anything's for sale, that means your government is for sale. And our government has been completely bought. And it's completely bought by corporations. And we are being run by corporations. Our decisions, foreign policies, are being made by what the corporations will benefit the corporations. And that's it, plain and simple. And it's been that way ever since the CIA has been, you know, developed. This is what the elitist predator class is doing. You know, they've convinced, you know, people out there that they have to go into these other countries to stop the flow of communism. No, they have to go into these other countries because they have natural resources that these corporations want. The monetary system, we got to make sure that they're on our monetary system. That's what it's all about. And that's how we have to sell this moving forward.
Right. Right. And it's the same in the small group of individuals that have their hands in or better said, their tentacles everywhere, like BlackRock, the Vanguard Group, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. They have their hands everywhere. They're the ones that are controlling the narrative. They own all of mainstream media. Yep. They own our education system. Yep. It's not really public if there's that public-private partnership where they can influence the legislation that is implemented, right? So that's how they keep us all ignorant and confused about what they do to further enrich themselves, further empower themselves. And at this point, their money is incalculable. And they're evolving with the times. The internet, like they see that people are becoming smarter and everything based off the information that they read on the internet. So that's why they're trying to move to more online learning, but with surveillance, having teachers become obsolete, where they're going to focus more on simulations and recordings for lectures on students. It's just horrible. Like, it's these automatic cars connected to the internet. We're going to have the internet of things soon. Then there's also going to be the internet of nano things, where they can do things like contact tracing, and they can use the excuse, oh, it's just for preventative measures. But it's going to be primarily, their priority is for profit for these corporations.
Yeah.
It's not actually going to cure us. They're just looking for things to keep selling us treatments that won't actually cure the disease.
By the way, Jim Garrison left a little love. He says for Franco and Pasta. So he left a little Super Ray love. It hasn't registered yet, but thank you so much, Jim Garrison. If you have known who Jim Garrison was, he was the first district attorney to go after Clay Shaw for the death and the murder of John F. Kennedy in the movie JFK. But that was in real life. Jim Garrison was the actual attorney who did make an attempt to go out there and try to put some highlights on what's going on. Laura Genovese also said, I regret I used by one of those people who preferred seeing foreign policy as way too complex. Meanwhile, horrific coups, massive plunders, and millions of people overseas, mostly brown, and that is true, have been slaughtered as they have fleeced workers. Seems the gun barrel has now turned directly on us. The ethics of the predator class's foreign policies is no different than their domestic policies, and that is so true. We said that, watch, they're going to bring that foreign policy home to us. Thank you, gentlemen. You know, Laura, I do want to point out something right here too as well. This is something we shouldn't get away from, because I think it is an actual unifying situation. Every day, 22 veterans kill themselves from PTSD. 20 of those 22 veterans are white males. White males are now the pawns to be used in these wars, be used in the majority of our foreign policy. And I'm not saying that Latin people or people of color don't join the military forces and they're not used as pawns too as well. But the joke is also on a lot of white people. You know what I'm saying? This is the form of solidarity where we have to point out, yeah, we're using bombs to go over there, kill mostly yellow people, black people, brown people, and stuff like that. But they're using white people as the pawns. And those white people back at home now, it's like Reverend Annie Chambers told me. She goes, you know, we were poor, is what she said. But she went up to the mountains to see some of these white people. She goes, they were poor. Meaning they accentuate that there's a lot of poor white people in this country too. And they have to realize they've been duped to think that their neighbor and communism is their enemy. It's not. It's the elitist predator class. They're getting played too. The boot is on their neck harder, the people of color as far as us, but the boot is on everybody's neck. And people have to understand that. And I'd like to find more unifying talk rather than saying that this form of oppression is worse than this oppression, realizing that we're all being oppressed and it's on all of us and in the predator class, because at the end of the day, there's a bunch of poor, white, uneducated white people out there. The predator class doesn't want them around there as well. They don't have to worry about feeding them and you know, entertaining them and giving them jobs. You know what I'm saying? They want us all gone. That's why AI here in transhumanism is here to take over everything. You know what I'm saying? That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. And they use, again, they fearmonger to these people that are upset with the system, these poor white people, into thinking that the people they should be mad at is the immigrants or the Black people, et cetera.
But you know, that's something too, Franco, we don't talk about, like the root cause of migration. Like, why is there so much migration? Yeah. You know, we were in Honduras and we saw it in 2017 when, you know, Trump's State Department, and it was so, you want to talk about karma coming back and kicking you in the ass, right? When it came to Juan Orlando Hernandez running against the Libre Party in 2017, in an election where the OAS said it was so bad that they had to redo, the United States, no, we recognized it. And they recognized Juan Orlando's victory, where there was a lot of dead people voting, a lot of people who weren't eligible to vote. You know, the electricity went out, and when it went back on, that usually that the Libre Party had, it shrunk down, and you know they stood behind it, and a lot of people, and we were told by citizens in that country, yeah, friends just left. They went to the United States. They said, if you're going to cause chaos in our country and you're going to make it a hellhole, then you're responsible. We're going your way, and they did. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. I want to highlight one of your favorite congressional members, Franco, Cory Bush. No, not Cory Bush. Cory Booker. Sorry.
Other Cory B.
Yeah. Cory Bush is one of your favorites in AOC because you got them on the steps with that little phony act they had when it came to the moratorium that they were just kicking the can down the road. It was one of my favorite moments of last year is when you laughed in AOC's face. You went, ha!
I love that moment too. They were so dismissive. It was so disgusting. And I was also wanted to point out before we show that clip of Cory Booker's how all these roads lead like if you see any problem in the country or in the world, if you ask enough questions, it all will lead you to the same people that are trying to do that are trying to control everything. And that's why I used to also think foreign policy was really complex, hard to understand. But the patterns are so similar, right? What are they doing in this country? Why are they there? Oh, for resources. They're going to implement more military. They're going to have military bases, if not drone strikes, if not surveillance of some kind. Like it's going to be a testing ground for some kind of technology that they want for the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
Same patterns in foreign policy also are seen in the science field, right? Which we can't get too deep into because of where we're at right now, but transhumanism and all that, you see the same individuals are involved. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, testing things like Neuralink, Medhurst, etc.
Yeah.
Going even deeper into that, same institutions, the Vanguard Group, BlackRock, etc.
It's funny because Fiorella did that video with the gentleman from the Great Barrington Declaration, right? Where people like Walker Bragman were actually trying to say, oh, it's a Koch-funded situation.
But they got empowered. They got richer during the lockdowns.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, well, who are you standing behind? You're standing behind the narrative of Fauci, who's friends with Bill Gates, who got funding from Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, hello. But
right.
Let's get to this video right now because I thought this was a Key and Peele skit too as well. That's what the gentleman put up there. It was like, and this is what I'm talking about, the hypocrisy, creating these phony boogeymans right now. There's a lot of people on the left as far as in Congress, and there's a lot of people buying this, Franco, where it's, oh my God, elections officials are getting threatened left and right. They can't do their job. So here's Peele, Senator Booker, once again, and I'm going to show you an example of how this guy always stands behind NGOs. He's not your friend. He's not progressive. Cory Booker is a fake, a phony, and a tool of the predator class. Here it is. Take a look.
But election officials, nonpartisan people all across this country now are seeing threats. Reuters documented more than 850 threatening, hostile messages aimed at election officials. In Philadelphia, a Republican who dared to tell the truth about the election, mirroring the words of then President Donald Trump's highest officials that the election was fair. What happened to him? Threats and intimidations, people calling his home, literally threatening to murder his 3 children. You think this is about one day in time? A survey from the Brennan Center for Justice in April of 2021 found that 1 in 3 U.S. American election officials feel unsafe because of their job. And about 20% listed threats to their lives as a job-related concern. This is not a foreign country. This is the United States of America, and our election officials, nonpartisan individuals, Republican, Democrat, fellow Americans, are afraid to do their job because they tell the truth. This is not about one day. This is a story from the founding of our country as our founders tried to break with the course of human events and establish here the greatest experiment of humanity. There were people who wanted authoritarianism. There were people that wanted bigotry. There were people that wanted to protect with violence, the kind of despotism that we broke away from. We make a big mistake if on this day we just talk about what happened here.
Franco, can you hear the forcing of extra dramaticness in my voice?
Yeah,
Franco, it's not about one day.
Yeah, he's gotta ask his wife for better lessons because his not his wife, girlfriend, Rosario Dawson.
Disappointment.
You gotta coach him better.
Yeah,
or whoever's coaching him. It's horrible acting. You can tell he was probably rehearsing that in front of the mirror. I'm surprised he wasn't doing the non-pointing thing that Kamala Harris likes to do and Hillary Clinton likes to do. Yeah. But the pointing down like this, the flailing of the papers and everything. This is not a foreign country. It's just more a fear mongering. Like if you look at what the actual evidence of everything that's been going on, like it makes it look even more ridiculous. But that's the job that these people have. Same thing with AOC in front of the Capitol going like this. What's this and that? This and that. When
but
somebody calls them out,
dance moves after too, Franco.
Yeah.
They were like,
to shut out the people that are calling them out, that are calling out the fakeness.
Yeah.
Right. So
the thing I want to point about
so
that
sad.
Too, it is sad. And like if somebody gave me that script, like this is your script, I would be like, I'm not doing this script. This script's terrible. And you do a breathing exercise before you go on stage. That's Stella Adler. Connect yourself to your emotions so you don't have to try to push it out, Corey. But the thing that really caught my eye too about that too, Franco, is once again, this fucking tool of the predator class of the corporations mentions the Brennan Center. He goes, a test by the Brennan Center. It's like, do you not think people are going to look that up? The Brennan Center is a Democratic think tank group that really presents issues with elections that don't exist, right? They're another one of these groups that really don't talk about getting back to basics. That's going to be my new cry for this year. Guys, we got to get back to basics. In our elections, we got to get back to basics. They don't talk about the real issues. Just like with this new bill that the Democrats are trying to push out, they're not talking about real issues within our election system, right? They're not really trying to fix it. And he mentions the Brennan Group. This is not the first time this guy has done this. This guy stands behind all these NGOs that are what we like to call CIA light. Well, the Convo Couch, Franco, showed up at the Democratic Convention a couple years ago, and there was a press conference while he was still in the race running for president. And inside the room, there were several journalists there. The independent journalists had taken over, and we were making sure that we got almost every single person on record as far as their stances on Bolivia and what was going on over there. As indigenous people were being slaughtered in the streets, we wanted to know what our Democratic candidates were thinking about the whole situation, right? And it's not a room, Franco, where they point to you and they say, you got a question, you got a question. There's a room, there was about 75 reporters and journalists there, and they just started screaming. So we positioned ourselves in the right position to make sure we asked these questions, and independent media that day beat the crap out of mainstream media who were asking stupid questions. We were like, no, this is the middle of a campaign. We're going to get them on record for foreign policy. They're running for the top of the ticket. Well, we want to know what their positions are on Bolivia. So here is Mr. Cory Booker talking about who he takes his information from when it comes to foreign policy entities like Bolivia. Go ahead, Oz.
I want to know, so far Bernie Sanders is the only presidential candidate who called what happened in Bolivia a coup. You just repeated it on the stage. Do you think what happened in Bolivia is a coup?
Look, I'm on the Foreign Relations Committee, and we were just talking about Zimbabwe. And literally, we have to understand when you call something a coup in Africa, actually, it triggers certain things to happen. So let me just tell you what I believe, and let's not get into semantics, that the people of Bolivia right now do not have representative government. And they deserve to have a government where they get to express their democratic ideals, where they get to participate in elections and have self-determination, which we should have in Bolivia.
Well, Mark Weisbrot from the CEPR said that it was a fair election. They disputed statistical analysis of what the OAS said.
Again, I'm taking my information from the OAS. And I'm going to say to you right now, the principle which we should be fighting for, before arguing over semantics, the principle we should be fighting for as a country should be going against corruption, dealing with poverty with our neighboring nations, and making sure that our Latin American countries have robust access to free and fair elections, and that the democratic principles are the ones, as the OAS says, the democratic principles are the ones that are
to free and fair elections. Let me get your thoughts on that, Frank.
Like I was mentioning, the similarities and the patterns in regards to foreign policy and with the science and everything that we're seeing right now with the Rona. Here, the tactics that these politicians or other talking heads in front of the TV use is the same thing, an appeal to authority argument. It's like, I'm taking my information from this group, I'm taking my information from the OAS. Meanwhile, the person that was challenging him, who nailed it, by the way, they did it in a great job, were citing evidence from the Center for Economic and Policy Research, the CEPR, right? Actual statistics, actually an actual study. Will Cory Booker challenge that? No, he's not going to challenge it. Like, no, I'm getting my information from these people over here. What is the evidence that they are using to back up their claims? Yeah. Just like the same thing with Fauci. What evidence is he using to back up his claims? What studies? That individual who was calling him out was citing a study, and Cory Booker had nothing other than logical fallacies and word salads.
Yeah. And, you know, that person who did that, she did a great job. Not going to mention who, because she's a pain in the ass. But, you know, that was the situation. That was one of the last guests. What's that?
Oz said something?
Did you say something? I mean, no, Oz.
No,
Oz
I laughed
with us because because that person is a pain in the ass, and you know that person. But that shows you even pain in the asses are capable of doing some great works and whatnot. And you know, there were a couple other groups that said that the elections that in Bolivia were free and fair. So you know, I mean, the CNE, I believe it was. I got to go back and check. I'm not sure. I don't want to quote anything. But yeah, I mean, the fact that if you're going to sit there behind the OAS. And you're going to say, these are the sources you think. And like, I'm on the foreign committee and let's not talk semantics. Like, no, you're standing behind a corporate funded NGO that wants corporations to go in there, whatnot, has been so off on so many different areas and shit. And you're going to stand behind them. So you're pretty much an imperialist and you're going to try to fake like you have some progressive entities. And once again, this whole push, we got to make sure that there's fair and free elections. Bro, bring that shit home. And then the other day, he's crying and he's talking about the Brennan Center. The guy will stand behind every corporate interest out there whatsoever. There's not a lick of progressivism in this guy. He's always been a corporate tool. That is Cory Booker for you guys. And he needs to get better lessons from Rosario Dawson.
And what's sad about it, though, it's not just Cory Booker. It's been happening for so many years. These politicians and other talking heads just appealing to authority when they make their arguments. A lot of people fall for it because they have trust in these institutions and authority figures, and it sounds smart. Oh my God, he's using letters, the OAS. Wow, that's credible. I can't question that. They know what they're doing. Yeah. How do you know they know what they're doing? What are they basing their arguments off of? Again, a lesson to everybody. Always ask questions, always ask people to provide evidence to their arguments. Otherwise, they're just talking out of their head.
Yeah.
Or arse. Yeah.
Well, I believe in the ABCs and I read letters and actually I follow the money, the 1, 2, 3s to find out who's influencing these groups and what they're getting influence for. And yeah, you know, that's the whole thing is that he can throw that out there. He can throw out things like the Brennan Group because people won't go look into it. He can throw out
the Brennan Group.
OAS. I mean, the Brennan Center. I mean, he could throw out all these names and sound like legit, but really when you look into it, like, dude, you're standing behind these corporately funded NGOs that really have just been all about, you know, ever since the NEDs existed, when Reagan got caught in that whole situation, they've been nothing more than a CIA-like group where they get money from the State Department. They don't have to disclose how they give the money out and who they give the money out to, but they have clean instructions and they give it to regime change entities in all these other countries. And what happened in 2018 in Nicaragua is disgusting. You're talking hundreds of people who got killed. Police officers, teachers, everyday common people were killed, were set on fire were murdered at the behest of the NED that was actually just working for the American empire. And to sit there and say that January 6th is something, while those same congressional members are sitting there crying, while they know Nancy Pelosi is a big time supporter of the NED. You know what I'm saying? None of the squad has called this stuff out. This is where we are today. It's hypocrisy at its finest. Anything else to say before we get on to the next topic? Because we got to help people out now in this next section. We're going to be therapists, as we are going to let people know, Franco, that people on both sides of the aisle got played.
Yeah, just if you ever are in a discussion with somebody and they're believing the narrative that is presented to them by the mainstream or some of these talking heads, just don't try not to be forceful. This is a mistake that I would make, is I would try to force people to think the way that I was thinking and to see the things that I was seeing, even if I was right. Just drop hints to them and ask them questions. What are they basing their evidence? What are they basing their claims off? Always ask for evidence, and then that'll trigger people to think more and to question authority more.
You know, when Trump got elected, my biggest disappointment, and we'll get into the next section here, was the fact that I thought his foreign policy would be different. Really, I did. I thought he would say, you know, he would have this attitude of being a non-interventionist, saying, why are we wasting all this money over here and all these groups and stuff in Latin America? Let them do whatever. Let's bring our troops home. Why do we have to spend all these bases? Because, you know, he was talking about NATO, how it was a waste and how much money that we didn't need it anymore. Well, he didn't have that same type of attitude when it came to Latin America and South America. Now, we have almost 80 bases in Latin America and the global South right now. 80 bases. What are they there for? You know, a lot of people argue that they're there to help the CIA with drug smuggling. A lot of people will say they're there to help corporations like what used to be the UFC, which is now Dole and Chiquita, to make sure that they can rape these countries of the resources and the individual corporations can make money and not the people. A lot of people think it's a lot about the fact that we want to make sure that our monetary system is there, but nothing can change the fact that that is the main source of migration. Just like what we witnessed in 2017 in Honduras, where the majority of the people in those caravans were from Honduras, it's because we back these tyrannical, fascist governments over there that do our bidding, that help us out, our corporations out, not the American people. And that leads to mass migration to the United States, to the doorstep of the global South and going through Mexico. So I also made this other tweet out there because there's been a lot of stuff out there now, right? Wow. I mean, seeing today, God, you know, and we're going to play it. To all the still Trump people out there, the sooner you realize that you got played, the sooner the healing process can begin. Some of us had to deal with this when Obama completely duping us. Now you have to do the same. Your thoughts on that comment? Because I don't know if you were there. You know, I have this picture on my wall from the Zago brothers. It's called the Big Sleep. And it's when Obama took office. All the movements, they went to sleep because it was Obama, because you couldn't criticize Obama. And the fact is that we got played, we got duped, and we had to come to grips and realize that we got suckered. Go ahead, Franco.
Yeah, excellent. Here's the key for everybody. Like, if you are ever stuck in like an argument about, oh, which candidate is better, this or that, don't get attached to anyone. They're all going to suck at the end of the day. Yeah. At the end of these forces that are actually calling the shots are going to win at the end of the day when it comes to whoever is going to be in office. Trump, at the end of the day, succumbed to what the military-industrial complex wanted him to do, something that Eisenhower had warned about. And now these institutions are and industries are even more powerful today. So don't get attached to politicians. Yeah, we've all been there, but going forward, just stop doing that. They're going to do things that are going to hurt you. I was attached to Bernie Sanders in 2016 and Tulsi Gabbard in 2020. Look at the comments that they're making now. And then the further you go into it, you realize, wow, Tulsi, though she was the least imperialist candidate in 2020, that's not saying much. The bar was set so low back then. She was always for war. She was always for drone strikes. Bernie Sanders in 1990, to get elected as an independent, had to strike a deal with the Democrats so that they don't run a Democrat against him and he can keep his status as an independent candidate as long as he votes for the foreign policies that the Democrats want and for the other things that Democrats want. And that's why he's been able to be a successful independent candidate, also so that he prevents a third party from growing in Vermont, something that the Democrats were very worried about. So I was like, damn, he's been a sheep herder this whole entire time. Tulsi Gabbard, she's been a careerist politician this entire time. She just saw, probably, this is my speculation, she saw the popularity of Bernie Sanders and decided to go there and said, I could do this better than him by, I don't know, using my military values to garner a lot of support. But again, though she was the least imperialist candidate on there, it's not saying much. The bar was set really low.
She was the most for civil liberties, right? She was like, I mean, that's the thing. When people say, well, do you support Tulsi now? It's like, I'm not going to vote for her. No way. There's no, I'm not going to do it. I also saw her on a website where she was part of this Young Global Leaders, this group by Klaus Schwab, where her and Dan Crenshaw were involved. It's like, you know, I'm sorry. And I haven't found it, but somebody told me that she was doing an advertisement where she was not an advertisement, but she was kind of praising one of the therapeutical drugs from Big Pharma. I don't know about that. I haven't seen that, but if I see that's going to be the final knife inside. But once again, it's like you said, you can't trust any of these people, any of them, you know, and I caught a lot of flack when we went after her not too long ago, when she said our number one problem was Al-Qaeda in all these other countries in Africa and whatnot. I'm like, that's the number one problem. I thought the number one problem was the U.S. empire creating these entities and funding and fueling these entities. Where did you go, young lady? But let's talk about Donald Trump for a second, because he's had a hell of a month, right? Like, we had the Candace Owens in an interview, what he said about Julian Assange and Snowden, which we were already very critical of, the fact that he was able to pardon Kodak Black and Lil Wayne, but you're going to let Julian Assange suffer in prison when you were, oh, look at this, WikiLeaks. And now all of a sudden, when that is the beacon of a free press, of making sure that Americans know the information of what their government is doing, and you're not going to pardon that, you're not a free speech person. You're not a clear person. You're working for the entities that want to keep that information suppressed. And also now, he's a vaccine salesman. And I want to give props to Anomaly, right? Okay, I've had Anomaly on my show a couple times. Anomaly caught a lot of shit from when he walked away from Bernie Sanders in 2016. Now, when Anomaly says that Donald Trump is a vessel for socialism, I don't agree with him. But I do give props to him. I give props to Alex Jones for coming around and calling out Donald Trump for what he is. Here's a little video he clipped up. Donald Trump is proud of his booster shot and thinks Republicans are gutless. Are gutless is they don't say it. Mm-hmm. As they don't say it. I don't know. If they don't say it is what he's trying to say. Donald Trump is proud of his booster shots and thinks Republicans are gutless if they don't say it. Mm-hmm. Let's look at this little video here real quick.
Do you reconsider your push for it, or what's your view now on the vaccine in general?
Well, I've taken it. I've had the booster. Many politicians, I watched a couple of politicians be interviewed, and one of the questions was, did you get the booster? Because they had the vaccine. And they're answering it like, in other words, the answer is yes, but they don't want to say it. Because they're gutless. You got to say it. Whether you had it or not, say it. Right. But the fact is that I think the vaccine has saved tens of millions of people throughout the world. Okay. I have had absolutely no side effects. I've had it like other people have had it, nothing special. I've had it.
Franco, you want to get into that? Because I want to say this much, that I do give a lot of props for Anomaly for stepping up and speaking out. You know, and I think a lot of people are saying the same thing. The question you questioned, man, were they part of this thing the whole time? Did I just get suckered the whole time? Because there's a lot of Trump people out there who are having a hard time looking in the mirror going, wow, what did my savior just do? Go ahead.
Yeah, they did treat you like a sucker. And yeah, props to anybody who's able to see through the person that they were supporting very hard. Like props to Convo Couch for not staying on the Tulsi train or the Bernie train and seeing through that. And again, props to Anomaly for not staying on the Trump train, and prior to that, not staying on the Bernie train. But yeah, this should be called out. He's not questioning these institutions like Pfizer and Moderna. And I mean, I go into depth with it on this show. I don't know how much in depth I can go with it here without you guys getting in trouble for quote unquote medical misinformation. But they are definitely gutless. Who is actually challenging the mainstream narratives regarding this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. What is Trump saying? Like, oh, like you should say whether you got it or not have gotten it.
Yeah, like step up and admit the fact that you got it. Like he's literally saying that if you don't say it, you're gutless, and he's telling people they're gutless. And you would think that Franco, I've been here isolated, sick, confined to my bedroom, fighting this whole thing. And I've had a chance to go and look at DirecTV's, all of their media that's out there right now. They have on DirecTV channel 321 is RT. So I get a little RT. They have a Freedom Radio thing, a free TV radio. I don't, Oz, you probably know about it. The one that Stephanie Miller's on, David Pakman, Tom Hartman, and whatever, free TV, whatever it is, and stuff like that. And then you have all the, the Newsmax, the OAN. And I'm going through all this right now. And even as they're starting to have some conversations right now on Fox, right? Like Jesse Waters had somebody on when they talked about the origins of Omicron, a little bit. It was like, wow, finally somebody's doing it. Nobody's having the conversations that need to be had when it comes to the Roni, right? Nobody's having the real conversations. And it's really, really disturbing the fact that in Congress, they're getting away with not having real discussions, real arguments whatsoever. When it comes to all these bills, the ones that Shadow Ban and Jack Sith broke down, you're talking about 1,500 pages of a bill that people have to vote on when they get it the night before. And the thing that's really a shame here, and when people talk about Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema, we don't know what's going on. There is no robust debate on the floor for what we deserve. The people deserve bills that are small, easy to understand and read, and Congress needs to do their duty. And that means have robust debate on the floor. You got Bernie Sanders right now. Look at this pivot right over here. Not all masks, Frank, all created equal. We need N95 mask for all. And the tweet he puts up, right? You got to be fucking kidding me. You got to be kidding me. We're not going to even have a debate about masks on the floor. We're not going to even talk about masks on the floor. Now it's just after 2 years plus, this is your power play. Let's not why haven't you gotten your ass in those meetings and questioned Dr. Fauci? How dare you? Instead, this is your push. This is your play. Bernie, have you been playing us this whole time? Go ahead, Franco.
Right. That's our revolutionary leader right there from 2016, Bernie Sanders, weighing in and telling us N95 masks for all. I remember when he used to discuss about Medicare for all. Now he's not even talking about that. Though my views on that have changed because of who is going to control. If there's a legislation for Medicare for all that's introduced, it's going to be written by the lobbyists. So there's going to be stuff there that's going to benefit them. It's going to be a Trojan horse in which, in the long term, we are going to be negatively affected. We are still getting negatively affected right now, regardless. But not to get too deep into that, again, N95 masks. Before, the argument was that all masks can help you. The goalpost is moving as more people start questioning things and waking up to the mainstream narrative. But it should still be asked, what is Bernie Sanders basing this argument off of? What is the evidence that this is what's going to help reduce the spread? Does it even matter now that I don't know if I can go too deep into it in this channel. Can I talk about like natural immunity and stuff like that here?
No, you got to be careful. Okay. We got to be careful. We're on YouTube. We didn't go to Rokfin only. And, But yeah,
I'll just say we got to look at evidence.
Yes.
Right? We got to look at evidence to see if this will actually help us.
we got to have debate about it, Frank.
Yeah.
We gotta have talks about that. They should be on the floor. You know, that's something that, like, okay, today Congress is going to have a debate about masks and N95 masks. Here's Bernie Sanders, and this is something I put in there today because if anybody knows Fiorella, you know, if anybody doesn't know Fiorella, right? Like Fiorella was a hardcore Bernie Sanders supporter, right? In the 2016 primaries, that's where we met as Berners. 2020, I supported Tulsi. Fee liked Tulsi, but she still supported Bernie. And I remember we were down in LA in a city council meeting, right? And they literally kicked the whole talks about the election, the election itself, to the end of the city council thing. And they had other things go on that would be hours and hours before. Literally, I left after 6 hours being there because it was a Super Tuesday. It was Michigan that was going on. And it was a couple of the Super Tuesdays. I'm like, fam, you're going to stay here to talk with Glory. They're going to stay and talk. I'm going to go and I'm going to get everything set up and get this rolling. Me and Johnny are going to get to go because we talked about having coverage that day. So I left. I didn't get the chance to speak. They gave only 60 seconds to speak. When Fam came home that day and we were on a commercial break and I walked out and I said, Fam, it's not looking good. It's kind of over right now. It hurt. Fam had realized that here we are in 2016 and 2020. The same thing that happened with the primaries in 2016 is happening again. We know it's not the greatest kind of results you can stand behind. The whole process, very questionable. I don't want to say anything and get us in trouble. But Fam realized right there and then that the same thing was happening over again. Then, you know, it came a time when it seemed like Bernie Sanders' Twitter was taken from him and it was controlled by somebody else. Stuff like this had happened. So here in this tweet right here, Bernie says, all Americans should have face masks that will keep them safe. I will be introducing legislation tomorrow for N95 masks to be sent to every household in the country. This will save lives and reduce healthcare costs. Fiorella goes, we're saved. Masks replace healthcare and treatment protocols and oligarchs making a killing off death. Yay. It just shows the consistency of my partner. That's somebody she really admired. That's a reason why a lot of us met each other. It's the reason why Convo Couch has a show. But yet she's going to call balls and strikes the way she sees it. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness, man. Fiorella's right. We're saved now. We needed somebody to introduce this because we definitely know that this is what's going to save us, right? That's what the evidence says, right? By the way, audience, do you know if that's what the evidence says or not? Do you know if that's what's going to save us or not? Look into it and please look at cause and effect studies. Look at randomly controlled trials. Don't just look at observational trials, observational studies that overestimate the results and are correlational. Correlation is not causation. You have to show cause and effect.
Yeah.
What this is based off of is a complete assumption on Bernie Sanders' part. And it's also virtue signaling to make it look like he's still fighting for us.
Yeah.
This is not going at the root of the issue. This is not fixing people's economic problems, nor will he do anything to try to fix it because we already know how Bernie Sanders rolls. And if people have dug even deeper into him, like how Pasta, myself, Fiorella, Marcus Cage, Niko, everybody, since 1990, it appears that he was a sheep herder this entire time. And here he is, still being a sheep herder, focusing on his base. He knows he has a lot of sycophants that are going to be celebrating this when it's not a solution at all to anything.
Yeah.
How do you know this is just going to save us?
You know, the thing I always yearn for when it comes to bills or when it comes to any type of law being passed, I want robust debate on the floor. That's something we got away from, right?
Yeah.
Like even now, Democratic candidates, Democratic lawmakers, whatnot. And I can tell you this, and I'm going to figure this out probably for Republicans too. I'm sure they're the same way. Their whole ideology is to hide. Don't ask questions. Stay in controlled environments. Don't have debates on issues. Just throw out your bumper sticker points and whatnot. we need debate. We need a robust debate on the floor. The cause and effect that you talked about, Franco. What are the benefits of wearing an N95 mask? What are the harms it can control? Who are we going to put them on? If we put them on children, how is that going to affect?
Yeah, how long should it be worn? Like,
Yes.
How is it worn in hospitals?
Yes.
Is there a significant difference between wearing N95 and medical masks?
Yes.
How do doctors wear it in hospitals? Are they wearing it for freaking 8 hours straight?
Yes.
Is a hospital room that's highly ventilated, is it the same thing as a classroom? Is it the same thing as working at a Walmart or an Amazon or all these other places? Is it the same thing? Are we educating the public properly on how these should be worn the right way?
Yeah.
And how is this contributing to environmental destruction? How is this affecting our health? Are we breathing in too many microplastics with this stuff because of the materials that are used to make this? None of this stuff is asked.
Yeah.
None of this stuff is being debated, as you mentioned. It's
everything you said
horrible.
there. Yeah. Those are the questions that we need answered, right? Like, I don't want to make too many comments on it because we are where we're at, because
these are just questions that I'm asking YouTube. I'm not making any claims. I'm asking questions.
I know. And it's crazy that that part of the censorship when it comes to this whole situation with the Roni, when it comes to topics like this, you can't even make claims. You can't even present science and whatnot. That's where we're at. And that the see Bernie Sanders kind of jump on this whole, it's just like, wow, now this is where you're at. It's like you see Rand Paul going after Fauci. Where's Bernie Sanders? And there's going to be so many progressives like Bernie Sanders is trying to save us, Franco. He's getting everybody
he's on Team Democrat.
Mask. Oh my God, this is my hero. Grow up, stop it already. Enough is enough. You've been played. People on both sides of the duopoly.
Didn't you know things would be so much better if Bernie Sanders was president right now, according to people like Walker Bragman?
Yeah, I saw that.
Plenty of people out there that are saying, oh, things would be so much better under Bernie Sanders, when he's shown you time and time again, he's Team Democrat. If he would put the left back to sleep, just like Barack Obama put the left to sleep.
Yeah. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today. That was a really good show. Thank you so much, Franco, for jumping on with me today and helping me out. this wasn't a planned thing. They had a press conference today in Nicaragua. You can go check that out on our channels, guys. Some great speakers there. But Oz said, well, why don't you just call Franco and do a show? You need some therapy. You need to get yourself back out there. This whole isolation thing right now it's been hell. And it couldn't come out of a worse time. I did not get to go to Nicaragua and cover this great story of what's going on with the Sandinistas and that government there and all the delegations that are there. But my team is there. They're doing some great interviews today, more interviews. Go check out the video with Danny Shaw. This guy's a bulldog. I love this guy. I should have he had a little video of he was on Al Jazeera, and they literally have somebody from the Council of Foreign Relations on there talking smack. And another dude. It's just so ridiculous, the lies that have been put out there. We showed today what the NED has done and how they had an insurrection in Nicaragua in 2018 where people died and suffered under the orders of the American empire because we don't want Daniel Ortega there. We don't like him, and we want him out. So we'll go over there and we'll cause chaos. And it will mostly brown people of color will pay the price for that. So thank you so much. On Friday, I am going to be going over and hanging out with Niko's house, probably jump on his show. I don't know yet, but I'm going to do the Convo Couch there as I think the team will be traveling that Friday. I will have on Tim Canova, and we're going to do a Rokfin segment only, where we'll be talking about the origins of Omicron, which people need to start talking and questioning, the FDA case. Franco, remember they wanted 50 years to roll out all the information?
No. They wanted 75 years, so long after all of us are gone.
Yes. Well, now the court case said they have to release this information in 8 months, which is going to be about 450 pages per day. But we're going to talk about the tricks they can play and how they can delay it in the courtroom process and use the law to their side to maybe, what if they just don't do these things? So Tim Canova will join us for that. And we're going to also talk about, I don't know if you know this, but Franco, every 6 months, they're supposed to have a joint session of Congress to talk about extending the emergency powers that are there, and they haven't had one. They're 3 joint sessions short, which they owe the people, which once again, robust debate on the floor. They're not having that. So that's something we're going to talk about this Friday on the Convo Couch. What do you got coming up?
Awesome. Yeah. Amazing show, by the way. I had a blast. Shout out to Oz. Great tech man over there.
Yeah.
He's the reason for why my camera looks so clean right now, because we chose a great computer for me to make everything look beautiful, sound beautiful. What I got coming up tomorrow, I am having an interview, a Rokfin only interview, surprise interview. Check. You guys are going to love it. I'm also...
You don't want to leak it here?
You guys interviewed these people already. There's someone that Fiorella referred to, whose name, honestly, I'm blanking on right now, unfortunately.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, though.
Yeah. Tomorrow, and also Friday, I'm going to be on Sabby Sab's show. And what else? Next week is a mystery to me. I don't know what's going on next week. But just know that I'm back. I took a break because, I mean, we all need like a mental health break. Everything that goes on, all this negative news that we absorb puts a toll on us. Your mental health is important for you. And it also helps you see things more clearly, more objectively. So that's what I got coming up on Franc Analysis, which you can find on YouTube, Odyssey, Rokfin, at B43 Franco on Twitter. Thank you guys so much for having me on. And
yeah, Saturday I'm supposed to be on Revolutionary Blackout, right? So
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to that. My first time on that show. Those are the old school Fred Hampton leftists that are now, I'm supposed to be on that show. But remember too, as well, we shouldn't talk too much about it because we don't know what's going on. But the 23rd, there's a big march in DC. I think they're doing some marches on the 22nd too as well. It's worldwide. So that's about mandates and stuff. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. If we have any information or news coming forward with that whole situation, we will let you know. So for Pasta Jardula, Stank Analysis, Oz over there, and to all the people out there, my partners, Fiorella, Johnny, stay safe. Love you, Shanda. Love you, Amber, over there in Roar Media. Combo out, everybody. Have a great night.